Can't hear.
Hello, everyone. Warm welcome from my side to our last webinar of Sustainable Together this year. Today, the webinar is under the theme of Return to Origin. We already had 2 former webinars. The first topic this year was Waste Not, Want Not, and Water for the Future. And we are happy to close off with another exciting webinar and topic, Return to Origin. Perhaps a little word to Sustainable Together. Sustainable Together is a project that has been initiated already last year in cooperation with the British Council and the Goethe-Institut. Myself, I'm the head of culture and development of the Goethe-Institut. And we had a chance this year once again to give out 3 grants to organizations and initiatives who are focusing on sustainable projects, sustainability, environment, but also discussions about indigenous knowledge transfer and community involvement regarding the big topic of sustainability. And apart from supporting those 3 grant projects, we have this webinar series under the sub-theme Shaping Our Future, Sustainable Approaches of Living. We have again our moderator, Thobile Chittenden, who already was leading us through the other 2 webinars. So she is in a second taking over and introducing our 3 speakers for tonight. And everyone who is watching, who's participating, please do also participate. You can leave your comments, join us. We're gonna grab them up later, and you can also watch the webinars and our discussions later on still on the Facebook page. And I would say for now, I leave it here. I'm very sure we're gonna have a very exciting discussion, listening to our 3 speakers and Thobile, and thank you for joining, and see you later.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Caroline, and hello to everybody watching this on Facebook Live. We're really excited to be with you this evening for our last session. So as Caroline mentioned, we had 3 Sustainable Together talk series in 2021, and the overarching theme was shaping our future, or shaping our futures. And so, as Caroline mentioned, my name is Thobile Chittenden. I am the CEO of Makers Valley Partnership. We are a community-based organization in the eastern outskirts of Johannesburg's inner city. And we're really passionate about active citizenship and active participation and enabling our community. And I think this is why we're really excited that we got to be part of this webinar and this actual theme being shaping our futures, because we believe that everyone is busy, whether they know it or not. They are busy shaping their futures. And the question is, are we intentional about that? Are we really recognizing the influence that we have, the impartation that we have in order to shape our communities, our environments, our societies, our countries, our globe. And so this has been why we've had these discussions, to really understand what people are doing in this space, what are the shapers, who are the shapers that exist, and how they are shaping the communities that they are in. So we are all shaping something. And the question we want you to leave with today is, what are you shaping and how are you shaping not only your future, but the future of many, the future of our generations to come? And tonight we're going to ask ourselves the question is, can we shape our future without returning to our origins? So can we really move forwards without knowing who we are and where we come from? And so this evening, I'm really privileged to have the company of the most incredible shapers, Bali Murray, who is the founder of Return to Origin, Shivani Davids, the founder of Reimagined Learning Community and Ecoversity, and Morisana Mabale, who is the director of Street Art Governments, and they are all working towards helping humanity reconnect with our African heritage and our African knowledge, our land and our environments. And so today we're going to unpack what it means to belong. How do we reclaim our identities, and why is this the most important first step in order to reshape our world? And as we're discussing this, we're really going to focus on the Sustainable Together grant recipient, who is Return to Origin, and their work on restoring wholeness and belonging in their communities that they're in. So to get things started, to get you introduced to our amazing panelists, they're each going to have a short opportunity to share 5 minutes to unpack the critical issues that they are facing in their communities and how they are reshaping the narrative to address these issues in their work. And whilst they're sharing, please, as Caroline mentioned, make sure that you pop your comments into the comments box, share your questions. We really want to hear from you and hear your questions so that we can ask our panelists towards the end of our conversation together. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off with our first panelist, who is Bali Murray. As mentioned, she is the founder of Return to Origin, as well as the visionary and the manifester. She has a diverse background in the healing arts, integrative medicine. She has knowledge in indigenous practices and transformative guidance. And Return to Origin, as mentioned, is one of the 3 current Goethe-Institut Sustainable Together grant recipients. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Bali. You can share a little bit about who you are and why you do what you do. And then you just need to unmute. Sorry, we haven't been hearing you. If you can just unmute.
Thank you, Thobile. It's wonderful to be here, and it's an honor to be here with you and with these two other wonderful panelists, and to be part of this webinar with the Goethe-Institut. I would like to let you know that at present, I'm on the land of the Bergplaats Nature Reserve in the Eastern Cape, and I come from a lineage of Bushmen and Shangaan and Dutch and Portuguese and Xhosa and Khoi, and for now I think that's it, and French Huguenots as well. Those are the ones I know anyway, but I'm sure there are a few more. Our vision at Return to Origin is to offer the possibilities of reimagining our relationship to our world by returning us to a culture of belonging, our origins. So the mothers in all their glory, and I'm talking Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Mother Water, and the mountains and all of nature. Just as a way of remembering that we're not all there is, that we are very much part of a greater Earth story. And we come from a line and a long line of old ancestors, old ones, as well as being connected to the cosmos. So we are not all there is, and we make the connection to our greater earth story that includes all of who we are. We understand we belong everywhere, and that the broken links may be healed by this return to origin. To understand where, how, and why we have arrived at a particular place in our lives, we feel at Return to Origin that sometimes we have to begin reflecting from the place where our journey began. And that doesn't mean necessarily going back to our homelands, although it could mean that, but it's much more to do with our place of origin, which is nature, which belongs to all of us, and it's our lineages, our stories, our ancestors. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. So I've got a few images, which I think is going to also just put what you've said into a visual explanation. So I'm going to share that on screen, and if you can just take us through some of this imagery and what it means to return through this imagery.
This image is was at a taken from a workshop that we did together in the community, Ekopmaleni community in Kenton-on-Sea. And we brought the earth in as an installation that stayed throughout the workshop. And it also went with us to the final culmination, which was an exhibition we had. So this earth became the central point for all the work that was going to be done. It held us, and it held our stories and our prayers and our tears and our everything that happened in the 3 amazing days that we were together. So Endulo, Origins, our intention was to illustrate how the co-creation of place, storytelling, and community involvement in process of planting, harvesting, contribute to a deepened sense of belonging, self-worth and awareness. So self-worth and awareness is very much a part of everything that we do in terms of belonging. So bringing the earth in became this container for each person, and they each brought a handful of earth from their land and united it with this earth to create a container of unification. So once earth and elders are present, the container is tight. This is after all the stories were shared and many, stories of separation, Yant Luquano, separation, once the sharing of stories from the past, the hidden histories of separation and ways of being and living from the land, we brought the community into a place of reconciliation, and the water is where we did that. So we went to the Karicha River, where the river meets the Indian Ocean, and we at the river, a symbolic ritual of washing away that which no longer served us, that kept us stuck, opening a flow where the river took our prayers to all the waters of the world, to reach even the voices of those from the ocean. In Beowulf, seeds, throughout the workshop, the earth remained an installation of grounded and rootedness, our place of togetherness. It became a place where, when we needed light onto the darkness, we would return to the Great Mother, to that earth where we all belong. Here, we brought light and seeds and sowed seeds of new beginnings.
Sure.
Image 4, Kulanam, grow with me. This is our exhibition, and what you're seeing here is not only the images that we took of throughout the workshop, but also this manifestation of a manifesto. Actually, those pieces of paper on the floor all have words on them. So the community came together for the process of healing in a post-apartheid South Africa. It was a collective work, and this exhibition was a collective work, and it celebrated the extraordinary grassroots work done to hold communities together during COVID. And what we did here was they got together at the end of the workshop, and very organically, this manifesto began to emerge as they made a circle of words of how they would work together, how they would grow together.
Sure.
At the end of it, it is, we are ready to grow together, and here's how we're going to do it together. So this was what we call the roundtable discussion that happened at the end of the whole project, where we, as you can see, that same earth where everything had happened was brought into the exhibition as an installation, as were the manifesto words that was also part of the installation. And we created a circle where that honored and celebrated the community and the immense work they did together, but that also made visible through the images, through the words, through the quotes that they brought to us and the stories they brought to us. It made visible and reflected back to them, I do matter. I am enough. My voice needs and was heard, and I want to go forward to be sustainable.
Sure. So incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask which cultures were represented there? Because what stands out for me is that it is this coming together, as you mentioned, the different people and different ethnicities, I assume, bringing their earth and putting it in one place. I think that is so powerful, especially in the midst of xenophobia and a lot of the cultural divides that we have just in Africa. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that and how was that represented through the work that you were doing?
You know, the culture was mostly Xhosa people, but we are all such an incredible potpourri of mixed people. That's why I started the way I did, because just to show you, we don't ever know who we have sitting in front of us. And so if I say mostly Xhosa, I might offend somebody, because maybe they're not, maybe there are many, many other things as well. And I want to honor that. So, they came, what the earth did was it showed everybody that, we're here together in our similarities, not our differences. And this was a community who hadn't particularly been very close together, and they had come together in this way. And that was really amazing. And what was the rest of the question, Thobile?
No, that's perfect. I think, I was actually touching on xenophobia, but you kind of just showcased the fact that you don't know who you're sitting in front of most of the time. And so to be aware of that and to allow a space where everyone can feel that they belong and that their voice matters is important. But we'll dig into that a little bit more, maybe towards the end. I'm going to pass it over to Shivani Davids. He is the founder of the Reimagined Learning Community and Ecoversity, which are both self-directed and community learning spaces. He has been on a path of self-inquiry in community and individually for the past 9 years, and he's recognized that unschooling, community, and indigenous wisdoms can be used as a means for social change. So I'm going to hand over to Shivani.
Greetings, Thobile, and big up everyone who contributed to just this space and this sort of dialectic, exploration into what I think is going backwards to go forwards. I want to start maybe by opening up with a little phrase that's sort of etched into one of the walls at the center, at the Reimagined Learning Center in Troyville. And the statement goes like this. It says, remember the future and look forward to the past. And it's a bit of a mind gobbler. It does sort of disrupt our normal sort of ways of thinking about time. And I want to highlight the idea of looking forward to the past. So our community, and maybe Thobile, if I can cue you just to as I explained, maybe to load some of the pictures. So our community is based locally within Johannesburg, South Africa. However, our work is sort of, it's a planetary work. The work looks and shows up as gathering. The work shows up as publications. The work shows up as songs. The work shows up as rituals. And the picture on your screens that you can see there, that was a gathering, Ecoversity planetary gathering, where indigenous representatives and elders all the way from the Pacific Islands of Hawaii to the mountains of Mexico, to some of the mountains of Nigeria, as well as the Nile River have come together because there's this natural human feeling that things aren't really going the way they should. And we've been blessed enough to have elders, and a diverse amount of elders speaking from a planetary perspective. So that's also sort of makes us think somewhat differently about locality, and looking at as a planet as a locality, as our planetary and our Etherean and our Earth sort of commitment, and our commitment to Earth as people. So we came together, to tap into these indigenous wisdoms, to tap into these indigenous medicines, and these ways of looking at knowledge and looking at our existence, and looking at all of these memories that are in the earth, in the river, in the sky, and in people, as ways of creating a trajectory, creating a future. And what we have found is that one thing, just like our breath and our heartbeats, learning is also one of the big, massive spirits on this earth that is sort of that sort of animates life and animates our existence. So our community has come together to honor the sacred act of learning, the sacred spirit of learning, the one that can't be ignored. We have this day at the center, which is called Day to Try to Learn Nothing. And like everyone will sort of maybe take on the challenge to try to learn nothing, you'll realize that it's impossible to learn nothing. Sure. And it's with that we honor unlearning, relearning, in order to pave ways of going forward. Because I think a lot of the world has seen learning to be siloed and individualized. And what we found is that in our indigenous wisdoms, in our African wisdoms, in our planetary wisdoms, that learning is very similar to that of breath or to that of the rivers. It's not mainstream, it's multiple rivers and multiple streams that flow into one another. So basically, we're just a planetary community, simply said, that honors ways of living, ways of breathing, ways of thinking, and ways of showing up that honors sort of human existence, and also honors our relationship with our future and with our past. So yeah, you can. Over here, I was just speaking to an elder from New Zealand, and he was sharing to me the stories about his tattoos on his face, and how that is he has the ability to recall 500 generations, the name of his grandmother 500 generations ago, because it's a poem that is inscribed onto his face. Over here is some of our work with planting. So of course, part of our relationship with the land is also honoring the fact that some in what's cool about learning about all these indigenous wisdoms is that the word for plants actually means those that look after us. So when we plant and when we look after the earth, we are paying not only homage, but we are paying life force forward for those that will eat, and those that will enjoy, and those that will run around and fall and cry. Such as the energy of plants does animate us in such crazy, interesting ways. So yeah, we are doing some planting. Over here, this very interesting picture. This was a few weeks ago at the Reimagine Learning Center with some of the young people. So we have an intergenerational learning space where young and old come together every day to learn. And here we have an elder that was sharing indigenous sort of cuisine, African cuisine. So there we have pumpkin leaves, we have coconuts, we have mbuya, which is like a wild spinach or moroho that grows. And the youths were busy learning how to prepare some of these African awesome, highly nutritious foods that grow as weeds. So none of this was planted, except for the coconuts, of course, that were brought from the Yeovil market. But everything else was foraged, not sort of picked from a farm, but foraged, meaning it was grown wildly. It wasn't sort of planted. It grew for us, with us, through us, by the great spirits. And yeah, we can go forward. This is a massive festival that we just had earlier this year called Knowledge in People. As you can see, festival of unlearning, remembering, and restoring. Basically, the festival looks to highlight and honor knowledge that exists within every single spirit, young and old. And it's a festival where we come together basically just to share and sit at one another's feet in our exchange of knowledge, life, and wisdom. And that shows up in all sorts of ways, from music to dance to meditation. And yeah, that's it from our sort of collective. And I come here as one, but just like the previous speaker said, we are multi-dimensional beings. So you might see one face, but I'm representing a whole community with regard to everything that we will be sharing. And thank you once again for this platform to share and to be together. Bless up.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words. I love that quote that you said at the beginning about remembering the future and looking forward to the past. That's blown me away. It is really like a mind warp. And I look forward to asking you some questions just now. I'm really also just intrigued about how you really value this intergenerational learning, and that it comes from young and old. And so often we just look to older wisdom, but there's actually so much wisdom from our youth as well. But let's go on to Modisana. Modisana, are you ready? I'm just going to intro him and share that he is an artist, a theatre maker, an arts educator, creative writer, an environmental activist, an all-rounder in terms of the performing arts, and he uses his gifting in the arts to reshape the narrative of our African identities. He is the director of Street Arts Government, and they are transforming illegal dumping sites into recreational parks and spaces for the youth to reconnect back to their environments. So I'm going to hand it over to you, to Modisana, to share a little bit about what you do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Modisana Vale, and I am from Sharpeville. It's a township in the south of Gauteng here in South Africa. So I'm one person who loves plants and nature, but now, since I'm an artist, we are faced with a challenge of illegal dumping around the spaces. So I've been supporting, and our movement has been supporting cleanup campaigns around the township. So, and I realized that there's a lot of cleaning that has to be done, because the apartheid system has done a lot of mess, a lot of dumping in our minds. So hence we came up with a saying that this is an environment. So it means we're cleaning up the minds first, because people have behaviors of littering, and there's a lot of mess that has been done. And even townships themselves were created as labor camps, even dumping sites, because if you look at the systems of how the industrial sites are designed, all the smoke goes into the township. So there's a lot of cleaning that has to be done before we can even acknowledge what nature has given us. So we realized that there's a lot of cleaning that has to be done in our township. So here, this picture here, it's one of our cleaning campaigns that we're doing in the township. And I'm proud to say that the space itself today is now a recreational park. So we had to engage the community. We not just impose information in community members to say, no, dumping is wrong. No, you just have to engage the people about what is happening, about the mess that they see, and ask them questions, and, you know, like, hear their stories, because the community is not about me alone. It's not about you. The community, that we share something common. So we share this dumping site. So here, this picture here, actually, it's around in Sharpeville, we have a landfill site. So this is one of the biggest landfill site, I think, in Gauteng, I can say. And this picture was taken in 2019 before COVID. Yeah. So this was an installation that I did at this landfill. It's called Matiki. So there's a lot of burning in this landfill site, and Sharpeville itself has been identified as one of the worst areas that has been affected by smoke, waste burning. So because we've been doing a project with ESCOM under Masibambisane Air Quality Campaign. So Sharpeville has been identified as one of the worst in terms of as far as air quality is concerned. So this was an installation that I was doing at this landfill site to show people and even people around. And here, this picture, I was telling stories to children because now they are not exposed to natural environment. So it's me going to various spaces and telling them animal stories, telling them stories about these dumping sites, and also allowing them to share their stories in space and give them platforms to say, come here and tell us your story. What do you know about illegal dumping? What do you know about nature? And how can we change the narrative of the townships? Because townships were regarded as dumping sites. So it's a space whereby I allow children to tell their own stories, their own version of stories. So here we use urban legends and African myths to see how these myths can be translated, because children have a way of translating these myths and even urban legends because they affect them on how they treat natural environments. So here is a space whereby we share stories. Yeah. So, since I've been talking about that, sharing stories, this play, it was part of Acitech playwriting competition. So this play addresses these myths and legends about nature. It addresses how the urban legends sometimes disconnect children from natural environment. Like most African-speaking communities can relate to the story of watermeis. So you see this white woman, watermeis, being in the waters, and children are scared of going to the waters or engaging because this beast might attract them to the waters and do funny stuff. So, but there's another flip side to it, to say there's Khanyapa, which is the creature of the waters. So people have to treat, because since I've spoken about illegal dumping, so when people are dumping in the waters, so they should be aware that they are tampering with the water snake. So it's sort of allowing children in the space when we're creating this narrative, so to say, what do you think about watermeis? What do you think about Khanyapa? Do you think this is real? How does that affect how we treat our natural environment? So this play was showcased at Soweto Theatre under the Tumong program. The Tumong is it's a Saturday program whereby children are under development, and then the storytelling programs and the theater. So it was part of it last year, I think, yeah, this year in September. So next year we are planning and taking it to other spaces. So this dumping site that you see here, actually I took this picture 3 years before it was transformed. And then there were processes whereby we allowed people to engage with us in the spaces to say, what do you think about the space? What do you know? How can we change the spaces? So sometimes we'd dress up and wear suits and ties and go to the dumping sites and have a picnic, so as to challenge the perceptions of the community members. And when they engage with us, they will say, no, this is not the right space for you to do those activities. And then that became an opportunity for us to engage them in spaces to say, how can you contribute in changing the space, in changing the narrative of our township? And that's when community members were then engaged to say, I can do this, I can provide this, I can do this. Then hence I'm saying in the processes, we allow people to have sense of ownership even in story making. So the process started with story making to where it is right now, because every individual who's dumping there has an individual story, has a narrative about the space. So that's the work that we do as street arts. We say, you have a story, I have a story, together we have a story. So whatever that we contribute, makes an impact in our communities.
Incredible.
Thanks.
Sure, thank you. I am loving this. And what's been interesting is that the common thread through all our Sustainable Together discussions has been the role of youth. The role of youth has been so integral in every single shaping initiative that we've seen. And I found it quite interesting when we're speaking about you have to go backwards before you move forwards. We're in such a rush sometimes to grow up and to become wiser, etc. But there's so much wisdom, as I was touching on before, with our youth. And I just wanted to get your insight in terms of what is the response of youth? Do you find, I'm assuming, like a difference between the reception of the knowledge that you're bringing, or these narratives that you're bringing? Because when we hear myths, urban legends, as the older you grow up, you just refer to them, or you think of them as just these old stories that are not even true. But there's something about a child that is more receptive or more open to that narrative at times. So I just wanted to get a sense of how you find your engagement with youth versus the elders. What is the response that you get specifically with the youth?
With youth, it's a matter of connecting them with their names, connecting them with their ancestry, and to say, when we even playing in the space, to say, introduce yourself, my name is Mbali, my name is Giovanni, and to tell us about your origins, to say, Mbali, okay, I'm from this place, and and it allows participants to feel free, because we have to create a safe space first, and to come in a playful manner, because sometimes we tend to be too formal. So what we do with the street arts, we sort of try to be informal, because our everyday life is informal. Hence, we are more in the streets because life is informal. So our engagement with both youth and elderly is sort of trying to bridge the gap between the two, and bring those narratives together, and invite them as participants in the space to say, what do you think about these myths? What do you think about this? And how can we create a collective narrative? So, but it's challenging on its own, but we have tried those tactics, of engaging community members. Yeah.
Thank you. And Mbali, I wanted to ask you, in terms of this disconnect that we now have with understanding where our knowledge comes from, or why is there the sense that we don't value our Indigenous or African knowledge anymore? What has led us to become so disconnected with who we were originally, and why is then this need to return to origin?
Well, we didn't just happen here randomly. So we come from a great line of people and a great line of ancestors, and I include nature in that as well. So when we start cultivating the interrelationship between self, our community, and environment, we have a knowing that we are not all there is. And I think what has happened over the years, over the centuries, is this the single narrative, or the single story of you do not belong. I think that's the underlying piece of every narrative that has separated us. You don't belong. The truth is, as we mentioned before, is that we belong everywhere. And when we hear this over and over again, and it's come from our families too, who've also gone through a separation of some kind, whether they've lost their land, their identity, who they are, that's also, it comes from this narrative that started a long, long time ago. This is not your land, you don't belong. So that puts us in this small self, a lot of shame, small self, as opposed to the greater self that we came here to be, which is all we came here to be was ourselves, actually. There's no great mystery. We came here to be ourselves. That's why we're here. So anything that has removed us from language, culture, nature, traditions, families, rituals is a physical genocide.
Mm.
And I call it the great forgetting. And so the great forgetting, many reasons why the danger of a single narrative that could have come from many places. However, that danger of that single narrative is ingrained in many, many of us. And we carry that in our bones, in our body, in our blood.
Mm.
And it's not about going back to dress in beads and feathers and skins, although that's fine if that's what is what you want and it's important to you. The root is deep. If you want to know the truth, you have to go to the source. If you want to heal, you go to the root cause. You don't start in the shallow water. You have to go to the deep water. So, there are multiple, we belong everywhere. And Elif Shafak talks about being born in one country and belonging to many.
Sure.
Is my sense is that if we were to find that belonging through the healing of the stories that we carry, of our people, of our lineages, of our ancestors, of how we are connected to nature, right? Our foods, our cultures, our traditions, our rituals, we would find our way back, and we would begin to remember. I'm not sure we've forgotten. I don't believe that deep in the root of who we are, I don't believe we forget. I believe that the narrative has the narrative of that single story, you don't belong, has been ingrained deeply in our bones. And it's more of something that we've come to believe. I'm not sure that, we don't forget, we know on every level of, on some level that we belong, but everything in our environment says we don't.
Sure.
Right? So, it's about returning to that culture of belonging.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think it touches on that earlier question of, xenophobia being just an outcome of not knowing or, not remembering who we truly are. And so I just love the fact that you're saying we're here to be ourselves and that will look different for everyone. But what Morisana was saying is that it's not just about physical dumping, it's about the dumping of identities that have been passed on to us or enforced into who we are. And so, sure, I just think it's so powerful to unlearn that. And that's what Shivani has been speaking about, is this process of unlearning and relearning. So I just wanted to hear from you, Shivani, that you are in a very different environment to Bali, in a very urban context. And I wanted to hear, what is your experience been in terms of navigating this old versus new? What does that look like? Because it does feel like a tension in today's terms, but perhaps you navigate that in a different way. So yeah, I'm just interested to hear, is there a role that urbanization has played in terms of us forgetting who we are?
See. Thank you very much. And yes, I'm being deeply sort of rejuvenated by the comments of Umbali and Morisana. And I would say that the architecture of forgetting, the architecture of oppression definitely plays a massive role. Morisana spoke about how the townships have been sort of specifically built with intention, and they have their sort of relationships with pollution, and not just pollution with regard to sort of the consciousness, but also the physical ideas of pollution that show up. And that was a geographic sort of intention. It's not like a random thing that all of the dumping sites, the mine dumping sites, are around township. Everything from Tembisa, Soweto, and El Dorado Park. It's not just a weird instance that there's also the landfills that are both in El Dorado Park as well in Soweto. These are all specifically and intentionally done. Of course, the theory about the indigenous, the theory about those that belong, is that they are like a source of light, and you have to try it every form in every way to try to oppress them or shut that light out. So these aesthetics, these architectures that are sort of show up within our society, even within the context of Thobile. Thobile is in a township also. It's a densely populated area that is filled or that has this sort of dream, a very similar dream of New York, where all of our brothers and sisters from around Africa come to Johannesburg, and they come to this town to sort of find homage, to sort of find a home, to sort of find this Joburg dream, that dream of gold that was promised to the colonial mind so many years ago. They are still our brothers and sisters who come here with that same sort of looking for solace, looking for community, looking for that bit of gold. So I think as far as the urban setting goes, there is elements of the architecture that does sort of dumb and does sort of confuse and does sort of, how can I put it, make us forget in some weird form. But what's crazy is that like seeds are very, 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 very interesting, and seeds have the ability to stand for almost 50 to 100 years, and they wait for the perfect moment. There's a scientific word for it. I think it's something to do with conditions, but they wait for the perfect conditions in which they will crack, and it's in that cracking that something will grow. So being in an urban context, I found people such as you guys. Being in an urban context, I'm here part of this conversation. Being in an urban context has allowed me to carve life goals and to find my form of resilience. I never found, I'm not here because of being 100 years in the desert. I'm not here of being somewhere in Mpondoland, in Eastern Cape. I'm here because of being a city born boy, Johannesburg city. I've never been, like, people always ask me, yo, you from Cape Town? You're probably from the mountains in Cape Town. No. I only went there for 2 days this year. First time in my life going to Cape Town. I'm here because of the stories of the asphalt of Johannesburg, stories of people, the melting pot of cultures, ideas, identities that have paved this idea of community. And it's that idea of community, that densely populated, sticky community, lessons in the back of taxis, lessons from street sweepers, lessons from nyaupes. It's those lessons that I honor and I hold dear. And my work and is sort of is of the process of my purpose and that of the community as well, is to validate these forms of knowledge. So once again, if we speak about indigenous knowledge, lots of us as African people will get trapped by the Western perceptions of time. So indigenous means old.
Okay.
I can't embody the word old as an African because I'm present because of everything that has ever been. So there is no old for the African. There is no future. We also can't be Afrofuturism. We can't be like in that space of being pambili in front, like extremely forward. It's even the future that is the reason that we are present. So it's this idea of when we carve our existence, when we carve our moments, we literally carving a heartbeat to a heartbeat, and it's in that heartbeat to a heartbeat that we find an abundance. And I find that abundance in a form of knowledge, and the work that we sort of deeply sort of part of sort of raising is the fact that this heartbeat to heartbeat moment is an extremely valid moment. Our knowledge that we get from street sweepers is an extremely valid knowledge. The knowledge that we get in the back of taxis, the knowledge that I get here in Bertram's, that when I need to get peanuts or when I need to get cassava flour, I can tap into any child within our community, and I have the ability to then unravel a form of knowledge that can lead me to finding that cassava flour. So it's like validating knowledge, and I think that's a big part of our work in terms of it taps into all the isms and oppressions that exist, because also with regard to that relationship with the young people, how many of us regard the word child to be a valid word. And maybe I can answer this. How many of you guys will be triggered if I say, Bali, you are childish, or Mudisanya, you are behaving childish, or Thobile, I think today on this call you have been childish today. That word is a trigger word. And so what is wrong with the way we treat children? Children aren't valid. So even our child selves aren't valid. And what is wrong with the way with children is that children can't be trusted. So land can't be trusted. People can't be trusted. Children are out of control and always need a superior. Once again, you need a superior. You're not allowed to follow your intuition. You're not allowed to follow your inner voice. So you find that a lot of our oppressions lie and are deeply entrenched in elements of devalidation, elements of silencing, elements of dimming the light. And our work directly starts with the work with the child. And it can be the child body or it can be the child spirit, whatever we want to perceive of the child. And it works with honoring the child mind, honoring play, honoring that curiosity, honoring that questioning that is untimely and doesn't hold any format or that is disruptive. It is in that we are honoring the human, and it's in that we have the ability to remember the future, because children and old people are very interesting. In African cultures, we regard them to be closest to God or closest to the greater forces. So it's with that we have to honor both very equally. And our biggest form of honoring comes with validation and creating that safe space, and not just a safe space as a locative space, but a safe space with our minds, our safe space with our relationships, and a safe space, most importantly, with our hearts. And it's in that we can honor our ancestors. It's that we have the ability to return to origin, because all of us were once children that had mothers. And that's a very sacred process, that all of us have come from mothers. No one is on this earth because of not coming from a form of a mother, whether that mother was an ovary or a womb. It's still woman, it's still mother. So honoring just that our connection, and the first connection to the mother spirit is the child spirit. So yeah, it's a massive conversation that also regards locative side. So earth as a child, how do we honor earth as a child's spirit? So when we see a tree that grows randomly, are we quick to chop it down, or do we investigate and honor the earth and ask, how on earth did we get this? I mean, one last thing, I know I'm speaking too much, but one last thing I want to say is a question a young person asked me the other day with regard to xenophobia. We were de-weeding, and you guys know what de-weeding is: removing plants that do not belong. And earlier this week, we were speaking about xenophobia, and one of the young people had the ability to relate de-weeding to xenophobia. They like, Shivani, here are plants that are not from here, but they thrive in, and they're growing faster than the other plants. Why are we taking them out just because they're doing better than other plants? Aren't we doing exactly what, isn't this a form of xenophobia against plants? And I put the plants down. Took my gloves off. I put the plastics away, and I said, "Guys, let's do something else for today." Because I never had the answers. And I don't hold myself to have the answers. But I held on to that question, and it made me think about permaculture. It made me think about all our relationships we have with the earth, and these acts that we sometimes might have the pretense of doing good. Are we looking at it through the child mind that can ask such questions, that doesn't sort of see wrong as wrong and right as right, but sort of sees different things and put things together in weird ways, and sense making through sort of horizontal sort of ideas more than these siloed ideas. And yeah, I think that's it from me. And yeah, that's sort of where we are in our thinking. And like I say, we're on a river here, so we hold no rights or no wrongs, but we flowing in this pool of knowledge and ever learning. So yeah, I'm grateful just to be here and to be learning collectively with everybody in this space.
Sure, we are grateful. Thank you. Incredible. I love what Morisan has put on our chat here. He says, a mind of a child, that's where the revolution begins. And he says, words of immortal technique. I love that, Morisana, because we're in this we're in a world that is different to obviously what it was 10, 15, 50 years ago, but actually it's also the same. And so I think it's such an interesting space. And Modisana, I wanted to ask you, because you are retelling the African narrative to our youth, what are some of the learnings and some of the solutions and answers that we might be facing as today's society? I know we said there's no time zones in the African knowledge, but if we are speaking about today and we think these are quite contemporary problems that we are facing, the ones that, Shivani mentioned, all the isms, every single day there's a newspaper headline, there's something that we are struggling with as a society. What are some of the learnings and solutions that we can bring from African knowledge to these solutions, to these problems that we're facing?
Since we've been experiencing this climate change, and there's been rain, and some people coming with speculations to say, no, it's because of the president. So no, actually it was a joke, but there's something that, like, if you look at some of the indigenous knowledge, you find the truth in that, because we have ignored. Hence, I love this idea of going back to origin, because if we go back to origin, that's when we'll understand and get the true meaning of what is happening around. And if you've been following Babu Credo Mutua, like some of the things that he has shared, like in terms of addressing the issue of ecology from African perspective, to say, if we respect the animals, we respect nature at large. There's a book he wrote, Isilwani, the Animal, so where he's stating the significance of each animal. If we understand what this animal stands for in our society, and if we understand again our true meaning, our names, our cultures. So I think it's about going back to origins again, to get the meaning of what we are experiencing today. Because if you go back, you'll realize that our prophets, like for example, in the Sotho culture, there's a prophetess called Manzupa who spoke about the change in seasons, where she said that there will come a time whereby we experience 4 seasons in one day. There'll come a time where we experience different seasons in 1 month. So, and I think this is the right season. And if we go back to those prophecies or those teachings, we'll understand that it is because of our behaviors towards each other and our behaviors towards nature. So still going back to origin again, to say ilobola, when we pay ilobola, the bride price, there has to be exchange of animals. So it's not a matter of saying people should eat those animals, but the exchange of animals represent life, So we know these things, is that there's nothing new. So it's a matter of us going back and reflecting. So based on what is happening currently, I think we should reflect, because the knowledge is there and everything is out there. So it's a matter of reflecting and going back. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I wish you say we know these things, but I do think that we kind of know them, but the meaning sometimes has kind of changed throughout the previous years. And so what you're just saying now about the bride price, etc., has never been a perspective that I was aware of. So thank you for sharing that. We are obviously heading towards the end of our time, and there's so much to unpack. I really want to say, good British Council, I think especially this conversation needs a session 2, because it's so incredible and there's so much that we can dig deeper into. But as you know, the theme of this is what are the takeaways that people in our audience, ordinary people that have value, that have agency, what are the things that they can do going in their communities, in their everyday living, the way they think, the way they speak, the way they engage. What are the things that you would like them to remember from this conversation? Maybe it's something you've said already or something that you want to say going forward as a new thought. But maybe you can just think of your words of wisdom as your final parting words that you'd like to share with our audience. And in Bali, I think we'll just start with you, and then we'll go through the rest of our panelists, and we'll then start closing this conversation. So Bali, you are on mute, so you can take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Thobile. My teacher, Maladoma Sume, who's a West African man, passed away a few days ago. And so I just want to honor him actually today and say, this is what he says: living without elders in tribal communities is breaking the container that holds a community in their cultural wholeness. You know, I feel that it's important to understand that the elders and the youth, bringing them together, is an inextricable link. And I think we've all touched on it. Che's touched on it, Madisana's touched on it, but that inextricable link is really important. The youth are hungry, and they're hungry for their history. They're hungry for their stories. They're hungry to know where they've come from. And having that connection with their elders, I feel, is really important going forward. And so, you know, we used to sit around the fire and tell stories, everybody, intergenerational. Now we sit around the TV and have other people contaminate our stories. So remember, you belong everywhere. The earth never said you don't belong. We didn't just happen here randomly. Keep returning to the earth and nature with practices of honoring and respect, storytelling and song and dance. And remember your childishness, and remember to play. And remember to play in nature. Go into nature often. Uphold your traditions and your ceremonies and your rituals, and listen. It's very important. We don't listen to one another anymore. We don't listen to the earth. We don't listen to nature. We don't listen to the animals and what they have to say and the medicine that they bring. Take care of yourself, your well-being. You know, when you bring your gift to a community, that's when a community thrives. Respect yourself and your body. The fact that you were born is enough. Right? So all of this, as well as silence to listen, have a profound relevance in our present world, and their cross-cultural practices across all indigenous cultures is remembering storytelling, song, dance, silence, nature, traditional ceremony and ritual. That's across indigenous cultures.
Beautiful. Sure. Thank you, Bali. That was incredible. Shivani, would you like to share your final words with us?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to sort of echo Bali with regard to the invitation for us to get into our child selves and let us stop acting with regard to that formal stressed person that we all sort of dress up in every day. Let us take the costume off, let us take the mask off, and let us go be in the sand. Let us go just play with the soil. Let us go climb a tree. Let us go lie aimlessly on the grass and let our minds question everything and even the nonsense. And yeah, just a big energy and invitation to honor the child spirit that is you in every form, in every way, and that is around you. Honor the children around you as well. So yeah, that's the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Morisana, you can share.
Yeah. What I'd say is that, my takeaway is that we all have stories, and listening to Shivani's story, listening to Bali's story. So if we can give ourselves time to listen, and by listening, that on its own will enable us to know what to do, because we all have stories. So, and these stories will enable us to change the narrative. So we haven't allowed ourselves to listen. So that is why we are where we are, because we don't listen. We don't listen to the kids. We don't listen if they want something. We don't listen to the plants. We don't listen to animals. So by listening to everybody talking, so helps me to grow, you know. So because even plants themselves, you have to talk to them so that they can grow. They have to listen to you. So yeah, for trees to grow, you have to talk to them. You have to hug them. They listen to the energy that you are transferring. So yeah, my takeaway is that by just listening to the stories, I'm inspired and yeah, so I'm inspired, and yeah, hence I'm saying listening itself, you know, it's
Sure.
yeah, these stories combined, they can build our society.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm also so inspired. I think it's been a year where people are trying to figure out who they are, and every time they take a step forward, society says no, we don't accept that, or whatever it is. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it's been such a year to reflect on, and I think it's so profound that we get to end this series with this conversation, because it's a great time. It's like a seed, as you mentioned, in the perfect conditions. And now is the time where people are going to reflect and think about who we are, and what do we need to heal from this year, and what do we want to grow into in the new year. And it doesn't have to happen at that date, but it's such a great time to reflect on that. And the other thing that you guys brought over and over again is this word honor. And I just, for me, I want to honor you, but I also think it's such an amazing time for us to honor our families, to honor the people in our lives, to honor one another. And what does that actually mean? So I'm really grateful for this conversation. It's something that I'm going to take with me into this holiday season. I really spend time reflecting and honoring those around me. And I'd like to honor Goethe and British Council for allowing us this platform. I know it's super quick, and I'm sure they're going to continue these conversations in 2022 as well, but they have been really impactful. I think, Bali, you always say that how can we be sustainable if we don't know who we are? And so this is like, it's a great time to end this conversation. Let us really think about, what does sustainability mean if we don't know who we are as human beings, as humanity, as society? So thank you Goethe, thank you British Council for this amazing time and this incredible Sustainable Together series. And I'm going to hand over to Caroline, who's going to do the final closure.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
May I? Yes.
Of course.
I just wanted to say that there were 4 themes in our project, because I think they've all been mentioned here. And the 4 themes that we worked with along with the community was Endulo, origins. The second was Yantluquano, which is separation, which are the stories, telling the stories of separation and oppression. And the third was Imbewe, which is seeds. And the last one was Kulanam, which is grow with me. And I feel that just sort of embodies and encompasses everything that we've said here tonight. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for that summary. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think it was basically, we already had wonderful closing words from each person, and also emphasizing again, Bali, those topics which are very essential, I think, to carry along. So thank you all for having been available tonight for this discussion. I think it's very fundamental, and it's good to basically bring those thoughts again into discussion, because many people sometimes tend to forget where we are coming from, because we are also busy and we don't have time and we are just looking forward. But we risk to forget the most important things that basically help us stabilize and also sustain. And I think this webinar series this year was really interesting, because we had so many different topics And closing with Return to Origin Tonight shows again like what sustainability means. Very often we connect sustainability with mainly all those environmental topics like climate change and how to protect our environment. But sustainability is more than this very concrete things. I mean, it's really also about like ourselves, our cultures, our origins, and be very aware because this also carries us forward. So thank you really on highlighting this. I thank the speakers, and definitely a special thank you goes again to Thobile, who was leading the 3 webinars, dived with the speakers beforehand already into the topics to have previous discussions. Thank you very much for having joined us on the webinar series. We very much hope to continue because I think everything that turns around sustainability needs to continue. The discussions need to continue because we need to sustain. So this question will always be there, and I think we should really continue to tackle it. And we hope we're going to do. And thank you, as Thobile mentioned, thank you again also to our project partner, British Council, without whom Sustainable Together, the project, would have not been possible. And for everyone who missed it, I hope you're going to dive into all the webinars who are recorded on Facebook, on the Goethe site. Dive in again, take your time and listen to all the experiences of the speakers who have been invited. So thank you very much. And I wish everyone a nice evening and see you again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye.